Do you know what this is? This is 400 kilos of fun, and really comfortable fun at that. It will come as no surprise to you that this is not a Chris motorcycle. This is not the normal stuff I ride. So I'm not going to give you a review of the Indian Pursuit compared to all the other bobbers. I'm just going to talk about, for me, mainstream motorcyclist, what it's like riding something a bit left field, something a little bit out of my comfort zone, because I've been on it all day and I haven't stopped grinning. And I've had to swallow my pride a bit. I've made plenty of slurs about cruiser bikes in my youth, but you know what? I get it. This thing is a lot of fun. These videos only happen because of the support and help from our sponsors. Support the companies that support us. So this model we're talking about now is the Indian Motorcycle Pursuit. There's also the Indian Challenger. The Challenger is this, but with a little less of the touring stuff on it. No box, no big backrest. But the Pursuit is the all singing, all dancing, big screen, speakers everywhere, super comfy, really comfy for a pillion. It's a bike that's just meant to make motorcycling as comfortable and as easy as possible. So straight away from first impressions, you're probably thinking exactly what I'm thinking. It is a lump, it is a big old beast. 400 kilos of bike compared to the Challenger, which is 360 something, so they're both monstrous machines. Big engine, it's nearly 1800 cc, 122 horsepower, and I think it's 174 newton meters of torque. So it's a big, torquey, hugely oversized motorcycle. You're not going to spin this around in a gravel lane. You're not going to go exploring the highways and byways of rural parts of Britain and Europe on one of these. It would be miserable. But for putting in big miles and for riding beautiful places and taking the time to look at the scenery, I'm beginning to think this might be the ideal bike.
Now we're on it, now we're into some mountain passes with tunnels, technical. It's actually worth pointing out, this thing looks quite big and intimidating to ride. You know, I've ridden a lot of bikes and I definitely had some apprehension this morning getting on this. First few junctions you're sort of like, oh, what if it wobbles, what if it tips, I'm not going to be able to catch it. And I think a lot of people look at these types of bikes and feel the same thing, but you have to respect the size and the weight when you start throwing it around the corners. You can't just pitch it in like a sports bike and expect it to go around. You have to be smooth and flowing and plan ahead on the road. It's a lot easier than it looks like it will be to ride.
Now straight away this morning we got out on some twisty roads, a little bit of town work, and a lot of my concerns about the size, once I was rolling, had gone away. I found I could steer it pretty easy. You have to respect the bike. You can't take it into a set of bends and, oh, its train's turned up, look at that. When you're stopped and trying to do car park maneuvers, you have to be a little bit careful. You've got to respect it. Someone did drop one earlier, but it didn't go down flat, it just drops to the bars, but you've got to respect the fact that this is a big bike. And that applies then when you get into some twisty, tight roads. You are limited on ground clearance. It's a huge machine. You can't go barreling into a turn like you're on a super bike. You've got to plan your route, pick a nice smooth line, work with the ground clearance you've got, and actually it kind of becomes a really enjoyable ride, because instead of charging at the corners, braking and slamming it in, you're constantly planning ahead, you're constantly looking up the road, trying to find a flowing line, trying to get a better line for each turn, and you find the ride is real kind of zen-like. It's like this calm cruising between the turns that by the end of the day I found really addictive. And with 6 of us on the same bike, it was brilliant. Everyone trying to get a little metre here or a metre there just by getting a nicer line, or maybe hanging off a bit to keep yourself off the footboards. So if you are a hooligan, if you are an idiot that likes to do silly things on motorcycles, it's still got something for you. It doesn't ever get boring.
One thing I always like to do is ignore all the briefings about the controls and see if I can figure them out for myself. That's usually a good tell that a bike's kind of intuitively designed. And if you can jump on and jab buttons and get it to do what you want without having to reach for the manual, especially these days, because touring bikes in particular, there's so many features on them. There is more than you actually need, but cruise control, adjustable screens, speakers, you don't need any of that stuff, but if you can have it, why not? I really like the sort of touchscreen layout, but then with physical buttons to press, so you're not You know, if you want to put the navigation on, you press the button that looks like navigation. Navigation comes up. If you want to get the music on, you press the button that looks like music. Music comes up. I wonder what the one shaped like a phone does.
Flip to what I like to call the after lunch ride, when you're all full of food and you're a bit glazy-eyed. That is this bike's forte. Shift up the gears, cruise along, whack the cruise control on, visor open, electric screen up, tunes blaring. It is such a relaxing bike to ride. It's a completely different side of motorcycling to your sports bikes, your adventure bikes, and all the performance orientated stuff that a lot of us do. Certainly myself, it's the core of what I do on a bike.
Look at that road! Whee!
Finishing up on it today, the thing I'm going to liken it to most is a canal boat holiday. If you've ever been on one, I did one once. I spent half an hour really frustrated that I couldn't go any faster and I couldn't go around corners any quicker. And then when you accept it and you slow your heart rate down and accept a slower pace of life, suddenly it's really enjoyable and really pleasurable. So if you're not into these things, do yourself a favour, go and have a go and try one, and just try a different side of motorcycling, because I think if you're honest with yourself, you'll find some enjoyment in it. Now, I've got to pick some holes in it. I'm not going to go into what's more comfortable, what's got more luggage capacity than this, that or the other. That's another conversation for another day. Riding it today, I found a couple of things held me up. One, the gear shift was a little bit clunky. Never terrible, but it was trying to shift through the gears, particularly in town at low RPM. Whether I used the clutch or whether I slipped between the gears without the clutch, it was always just a little bit notchy, not the smoothest thing there. On top of that, a few of the bikes, when we were riding hard downhills and doing lots of turnaround for photos, we started getting a bit of a squeak from the back brake. So, you know, if you're two up doing long mountain passes, you just need to be aware of that. But outside of that, save for some silly nitpicking, this thing works really, really well. It's not the big lumpy, bumpy agricultural bike that you think of it by looking at it. It's a really well engineered, really smooth bike, and got a huge smile on my face. I'm happy to have broadened my motorcycling horizons today, and I think you should too. Get yourself a crack on either the Challenger or the new India Motorcycles Pursuit.